Historical perspectives on autism and neurodivergence in Indigenous American societies. The history of autism, including what was formerly known as Asperger's syndrome, now unified under Autism Spectrum Disorder or ASD in modern diagnostics, in Native American and pre-Columbian societies is challenging to reconstruct precisely. Autism as a formal diagnosis emerged in the 20th century, first described in 1943 by Leo Kanner in the US and independently in 1944 by Hans Asperger in Austria, with roots in earlier observations dating back to 1911 in Europe. Prior to this, neurodivergent traits, for example, intense focus on details, sensory sensitivities, or social differences, likely existed but were interpreted through cultural lenses, often as spiritual gifts, shamanic abilities, or natural variations rather than disorders. Direct historical records are scarce, as indigenous knowledge was primarily oral and disrupted by colonization, which imposed Western medical frameworks and stigmatized non-conforming behaviors. In many indigenous worldviews, neurodivergence was not pathologized but integrated into community roles, emphasizing relational harmony and strengths like pattern recognition or heightened perception. However, colonization introduced institutionalization, forced assimilation, and medicalization, exacerbating disparities in diagnosis and support. Below, I address the query sections based on available anthropological, archaeological, and historical evidence. Paleo-Indians and early handling of autism-like traits. Paleo-Indians, circa 15,000–10,000 BCE, the first human inhabitants of the Americas via the Bering Land Bridge, were hunter-gatherers in small, mobile bands. Evidence of autism handling is indirect, drawn from evolutionary anthropology rather than specific records. Societal integration and evolutionary role. Research suggests autistic traits, for example, hyperfocus on systems, exceptional memory, or sensory acuity, may have been adaptive in Paleolithic societies, aiding survival through specialized roles like tool-making, tracking prey, or foraging. A 2013 study posits autism as a Stone Age adaptation, where neurodivergent individuals contributed to group success without stigma, e.g. detail-oriented perception for spotting resources in harsh environments. This aligns with modern hunter-gatherer analogs, where such traits foster cooperation rather than exclusion. Handling practices. No direct evidence exists, but small band dynamics, 20–50 people, likely emphasized communal care. Traits like repetitive behaviors might have been seen as rhythmic or ritualistic, integrated into survival tasks. Exclusion was rare. Interdependence was key. Modern native perspectives, such as Navajo harmony-based views, echo this pre-contact ethos. Disparities today, for example, underdiagnosis in native communities, stem from colonial legacies, not ancient practices. Plains, Indian tribes, North America. Plains tribes, for example, Lakota, Cheyenne, Blackfoot, were nomadic bison hunters, pre-1800s horse era, with fluid, kinship-based societies. Historical accounts of autism are absent, but oral traditions and ethnographic studies suggest neurodivergence was valued. Cultural views and roles. In Nehiyaw, Plains Cree teachings, autistic traits are seen as gifts for spiritual insight or pattern mastery, per 2021 community reports. Repetitive behaviors might align with ceremonial rhythms, sensory sensitivities with vision quests. Elders historically guided integration, viewing differences as part of relational balance. Handling. Community inclusion via adaptive roles, for example, craft specialization. Post-contact, 1800s. U.S. policies like boarding schools disrupted this, labeling neurodivergent children deviant and institutionalizing them. Woodland tribes, Eastern North America. Woodland groups, for example, Iroquois, Lenape, were semi-sedentary farmers and fishers in matrilineal societies. Cultural views and roles. Lack of eye contact, a common autistic trait, was culturally respectful toward elders, reducing perceived deficits. Neurodivergence might manifest in storytelling or herbal knowledge roles. Handling. Clan-based support emphasized harmony. Differences were accommodated without formal intervention. Colonial epidemics and land loss, 1700s–1800s, shifted focus to survival, masking such traits. Pacific Northwest tribes, for example, Haida, Tlingit, Coastal societies with totem pole traditions and abundant resources. Cultural views and roles. Heightened sensory or detail focus could enhance carving or navigation. Waikinuxva Heiltsuk oral histories describe neurodivergence as ancestral gifts. Handling, big houses, communal longhouses fostered inclusion. Potlatch ceremonies celebrated unique contributions. Missionaries, 1800s, imposed civilizing norms, pathologizing traits. Plains, spiritual insight and pattern mastery. Handling, community roles and elder guidance. Post-contact impact, boarding schools and underdiagnosis. Woodland, respectful behaviors and knowledge-keeping. Handling, kinship integration. Post-contact impact, land loss and assimilation. Pacific Northwest, sensory acuity and craftsmanship. Handling, communal ceremonies. Post-contact impact, missionary stigma and isolation. Pre-Columbian civilizations, Olmec, Maya, Toltec, Aztec, Norte Chico, Nazca, Canary, Muisca, Moche, Inca. These Mesoamerican and Andean societies, circa 1500 BCE, 1500 CE, had complex hierarchies, but no texts mention autism explicitly. Interpretations rely on art, archaeology, and ethnohistory. General views. Neurodivergence likely seen as divine or shamanic. Repetitive patterns in Nazca lines or Maya glyphs suggest autistic-like focus in creators. Inca and Moche art depicts otherworldly figures, possibly neurodivergent shamans. Handling by civilization. Olmec/Maya/Toltec/Aztec, Mesoamerica. Colossal heads and calendars require detail-oriented minds. Traits integrated into priestly roles. Maya codices hint at sacred fools with eccentric behaviors. Norte Chico/Nazca/Moche, Andean coast. Norte Chico's urban planning and Nazca geoglyphs imply systemizing skills. Moche ceramics show ritual inclusion of atypical individuals. Canary, Muisca, Inca, highlands. Canary resistance and Muisca goldwork valued precision. Inca Mita labor system accommodated roles. Shamans, curanderos, channeled visions akin to sensory overload. Evidence is speculative. Colonization destroyed records, but pre-contact art suggests inclusion over exclusion. Latinos in Mexico, Central and South America. Colonial and post-colonial periods. Colonial era, 1500s, 1800s, blended indigenous, African, and European views under Spanish-Portuguese rule. Colonial handling. Inquisition-era records pathologize neurodivergence as demonic possession or idiocy, leading to exorcisms or asylums. Indigenous concepts, for example, Aztec Nahual shamans, clashed with Catholic norms, resulting in marginalization. Enslaved Africans brought communal care, but mestizo families hid differences due to stigma. Post-colonial, 1800s present, independence, 1810s, 1820s, retained medical hierarchies. Autism undiagnosed until 1980s, for example, Mexico's Domus Instituto. Stigma persists. Machismo views it as weakness. Low awareness delays diagnosis. Average age 46 months versus global 22. Colonialism contributes to disparities. Underdiagnosis in rural indigenous areas due to access barriers. Modern shifts emphasize neurodiversity, but cultural shame and limited services hinder progress. In summary, pre-contact societies likely embraced neurodivergence as strengths within communal frameworks, disrupted by colonialism's pathologization. Today's challenges, underdiagnosis, for example, 13% lower in Native children, reflect ongoing inequities, but Indigenous-led efforts revive holistic views.